Hi, I'm Michael James. So in the last video, I explained my adventure the other week when I took off in my light aircraft and we couldn't make it back to our home airfield, and the stress and the pressure that put us under and the decisions that we had to make and how we can apply some of the learnings from that to our daily jobs as managers or just working in a team. Basically, there's so much that we can learn from this particular situation, so I wanted to make a video on it. I want to make more videos relating my flying passion into leadership, management, Scrum, AI, etc. So I'm going to make more videos like this. Let me know if you like them by liking this video, and leave any comments down below with any ideas or any other tidbits of information that you think I've missed in this debrief video, and there's other lessons to learn from it. Okay, so I'm going to just talk a little bit from my tablet here about some of the lessons that I've learned. So the first thing is I'm doing a debrief. So as pilots, it's good to actually do a debrief of the flight. That is basically our retrospective, something that they highly advocate for in Scrum, of course. Reflecting on things and thinking about the experience and basically pulling out learning lessons from experiences is a really valuable thing to do. And that's what I'm doing here. So just right off the bat, if you've been through at the end of any project, or if you've been through any tough and difficult times at work, just taking some time to actually bother to sit down and either have a team meeting, or even if it's on your own, just write down some notes about what happened, what you could have done differently to prevent things, what went well and what didn't go well. That's going to really help to solidify your learning. Okay, so another thing that I think is a really key lesson here is proper planning. There's a term there, isn't there? Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. But at the end of the day, if you plan really, really well, then it's going to take a lot of the stress and the effort of having to plan things on the go, and hopefully things will work out. Now, the problem is, no matter how much we plan, sometimes things just don't work out. The world changes. There's so many different variables that are going to make things change that our plans go awry sometimes. And that's when we basically have to firefight. And it's good if we've already thought about some different alternatives, but we're going to have to make some decisions if the plan doesn't go ahead as expected. Now, for me, I already actually had some backup plans on this route. What I did was I actually had a look at the route back, and there were tons of little airfields on the way back that I could have landed in at any point had there been any unforeseen problems. And of course, that's what I needed to do in the end. So having a backup plan, having a diversion route, a diversion airfield to go to is good. If you're working at work, just start thinking, what happens? What if I have an engine failure? What if I hit strong headwind and the can't get back because of daylight? What if I don't have enough fuel? Now, whatever that works out to you at work, maybe it's what if this staff manager leaves? What if this staff member gets sick? What if this client leaves me? What if this piece of technology stops working? What if the cost of my residence goes up? So just spending some time to think about the risks and risk mitigation is good. So that's basically the first one is plan, or should I say the second? The first one was actually do a debrief and have a retrospective and think about things. The second one is do thorough planning. The third one, I suppose, would be think of risks and risk mitigations beforehand, have a plan B, have backup plans if certain situations don't work out. That's something that we get trained for in our flight school. They do train us for what happens if your engine fails, what happens if you've run out of fuel and you need to divert somewhere. Thankfully, my training kicked in and I managed to handle it really well. So good training is probably another point to pull out on this. If you've had good training from good mentors who have experienced things themselves, then they can foresee any particular problems you might have and train you for it. And then when you get in that situation, hopefully, the training kicks in and you know what to do. So that's another one. Okay, another one for me was monitoring. So I was monitoring my fuel capacity all the way. I wanted to make sure that I knew that I was going to be tight on fuel, so I was keeping a good monitor on the fuel. I was keeping an eye on what my fuel burn was every 30 minutes. And that gave me a sense of and how far I traveled in 30 minutes and how far I had left to go. Then I could calculate on that trip how much fuel I'm burning. I realized after about a third of the way into the flight that we weren't going to make it. So metrics and monitoring is really key. That allowed me to catch this problem early. And I had plenty of fuel to make a few different decisions at that point. I could go to one airfield or another airfield or another airfield because I knew I had enough fuel. I knew what my fuel burn was and I knew what range I had. Had I not been monitoring that fuel and I got a bit further in, I'd have had less fuel by the time I'd have realized that we weren't going to make it home. And that would have given me a lot less options of different places to land the aircraft. So monitoring and early warning. So that's another really good point I'd like to pull out from this. Staying flexible. So just being adaptable, not panicking, realizing that when things happen outside of your control and it changes the situation, you need to be able to adapt and react to the situation. If you dogmatically stick to your plan, then you might end up not making it home or not making your deadline or whatever it is, or delivering the project or the product that you want to deliver. So you need to adapt. Again, this is all coming in through Scrum, isn't it? We have our sprints, and those are a short period of time, and then we reflect and adapt after that. This is exactly what I was doing in the aircraft. The whole flight was from takeoff to the destination. That's the goal. And I wasn't doing sprints per se, but what I was doing was I was monitoring and I was reflecting at key points on the journey. And then I realized that there was a change in the situation that I hadn't planned for, and all of a sudden I needed to adjust my plan and be adaptable. So that is really, really key, being flexible and open to change. Another one was a little bit about communication and peer pressure. So something that we did really well in this particular flight was, as we were both pilots, and we both had different opinions on what we should do. Now, I was the one flying, so legally and technically I was the piloting charge, and it was my ultimate decision because I was the one in control of the aircraft. So, but because we both had a lot of experience, we communicated very, very well, and we both understand the same terminology, the same lingo. We've done the same similar training, so we both know what we're supposed to do in these situations. But sometimes there are differences of opinion. One of them would be, should we fuel up on the ground and put a little bit more fuel in to make sure we can get home? Now, the issue with that on this particular trip was we initially calculated together that we would have enough fuel. Now, I initially thought we should probably put some more fuel in to be safe, but I also knew that I had my plan B where I could divert to other aircraft if I needed to. So I knew it wasn't a matter of life and death safety, but it was a matter of inconvenience. In hindsight, I should have put more fuel in and we could have got home, and it would have been as inconvenient, and also prepare for the stress. And you don't always know how it's going to hit you in that situation. The other decision was, once I realized that I needed to divert, do we continue on to the next airfield? So we had a bit of a disagreement here, but because I was the one flying, and because I just thought, once my decision was I want to land and fuel up, I just didn't want to wait on that decision. I just wanted to get down at that point. So I made the decision to go for the nearer airfields. Now that worked out, I think, to be the correct decision, because it gave me more options of where to go. I wasn't as under pressure and stressed because I was doing it earlier, so I had more daylight and we had more fuel. If I'd have delayed that decision and tried to push forward to the further airfield, the daylight would have been less, it would have been darker, and we would have had less fuel. It would have just been an extra couple of factors on the workload and the pressure to land it basically first time. Good communication though is really, really key. Good communication with the airfield that we radioed into to land. We told them our situation. They could tell that we were quite stressed through our voice. They actually said that when we got down on the ground, which probably cut us some slack, allowed them to get us in quite quickly, and also allowed them to make sure that they got the fuel truck to us quite quickly as well once we got down on the ground. But also like communication in the cockpit, we worked well together as a couple of pilots to figure out our circuit and to get down onto that unfamiliar airfield, and also just the decision making working up to that as well, realizing that we didn't have enough fuel. Trust your instincts and your training. So I've kind of covered this already with what I've just said, but a lot of it was instinctual, and that might come from having good training, and the training kicks in. So I don't know if it was more the rational thought and instincts, or if it's because I've been trained well. But you're not going to make the best decisions when you're emotional, and what you want to do is just remember what your training instructor told you, your mentor, or what you've learned in the past, and stick to that, rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to be inconvenienced. I'm going to inconvenience other people by not getting the aircraft back. So I don't want to inconvenience myself and other people. I'm going to risk moving on. For me, the training was, if you're in a situation in the air, just get it on the ground. Just get down on terra firma, and everybody's safe and happy. So, or maybe not happy, but everybody's safe at least, and that's what the priority is. Yeah, okay, and the last one here really is, as I mentioned at the start, just learning from your experience. So that's really, really key. That's what I'm doing here. I've written notes up about this. I'm making videos about it. This is all helping me to learn from the experience, and hopefully you're learning secondhand from this experience as well. And finally, just staying calm under pressure. The thing about flying is you can't run away from your problems. If you've got a problem and you're flying up there, you've got to deal with it. You can't put it on pause. You can't go, you know what, I'm going to deal with that tomorrow, or I'm just going to leave this for somebody else. You have to get the aircraft down on the ground safely, and you have to deal with it right there and then. And that there can be a lot of pressure. I mean, you're moving at 100 miles an hour. You're constantly keeping an eye out for other aircraft, having a look at what airspace you're in. You're constantly monitoring the temperatures and pressures of the engine of the aircraft. You're monitoring the fuel. And you're also, so that's everything that you're doing, as well as keeping the aircraft stable within, when the wind's hitting you, because in light aircraft you get flown about a lot. All of that's got to be instinctual, because then you've got to plan in your head, okay, so I've decided I want to go for landing this new airfield here. And so, okay, now I need to radio and call them up. So what is the structure of my communication to make that radio call? Then when they come back, they're going to come back with some information. They'll come back with the altitude pressure. They'll come back with what circuit direction you should be in and what the runway in use is. Now you need to remember that in your head and feed that back to them. And then you need to plan it out in your head, all the while you're moving and moving and moving and moving, getting closer and closer and closer. So you're in a time period to mentally calculate all that and think about what you're going to do and mentally plan it. So getting stressed and being under, it's a lot of pressure, but getting stressed and locking up and freezing, basically you can't do that. So you've just got to deal with it. You've got to work it out. And the problem with all that is it can lead to small errors which compound, and then it can get dangerous. So keeping calm. And for me, I was just thinking, you know what? The aircraft's still good. We've still got fuel. I'm still flying. If I need some time to relax, I will just take it away from that airfield. I'll just fly a little bit. I'll just relax myself. Then I'll come back in and tackle this landing and approach. So even in the air, you can take a little bit of time and just settle the nerves and just get yourself together, and then go back and take on the fight. Go back and plan out the circuit and land. Or if that's at work and you've got to deal with somebody, when our emotions are strong and high, sometimes just pull yourself away from the situation as much as you can for about amount of time, but don't you've got to tackle it. Otherwise it's just going to brew, and important things need to be tackled as soon as possible, really. So confront it. But don't do it whilst you're stressed, under pressure, because you're liable to make more mistakes. Okay, so those are some lessons that I've learned from this. Honestly, the more I think about this, the more things, lessons that I can pull out of this story and learn from. Put something in the comments, please. Any other lessons that you want to contribute to this particular experience and how they can relate to management and working in a team and working with people, or working with projects or anything else, do leave them in the comments. I'll have a look at those. I'd love to add them to this list of things that I've learned. And and also let me know if you like these stories about aviation and flying, and me relating them to the courses and the things that I teach online. I'm hoping that this angle of aviation could be quite interesting. I could talk about checklists as well, and things that the aviation industry do that are really good that we can learn from. So I'm Michael James. I teach Udemy courses, and you can find me on learnmanagementonline.com as well.